In a previous video, I went through all of the steps that were necessary so that I could set up my machine with Node.js and with a code editor. I chose to use Visual Studio Code. And in this session, I'm actually going to now start writing some JavaScript, which of course is the best way to learn, is by writing some JavaScript, see what the results are. So I've got a brand new directory here called Learning JavaScript with Node. So whenever I have a new project, which I want to create in a new directory, I need to begin by typing in npm init. This is going to set up the package.json file on which npm and Node really rely. So I'm going to call this Learning JavaScript with Node, no spaces. Version 1 is fine. Description, learning stuff, that's fine. Entry point index.js is fine. I'm not going to specify a test command. I'm not going to specify a Git repository. Not even going to specify any keywords at this time. And ISC is fine for the license. So this is okay. So I'm just going to hit return. Now at this point, because I've already installed Visual Studio Code, I can simply type code dot, which will open my editor. So now I have my code editor open where I want it to be. Now if I click right here, I can see the contents of that file, package.json, that was created. Now the next thing that I want to do, because I have Node installed and because I have npm installed, I can start to bring in some additional tools that will make it much easier for me to develop with JavaScript. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to install a package that's called Browsersync. Now Browsersync, if you go out to Google and you just Google for npm Browsersync, you'll be able to find this package and all of its documentation. I really think that Browsersync is great and I really recommend using it. And I think you'll see why in just a few minutes. So back over here in my Node command prompt, in my new directory, I'm going to type in npm install -g Browsersync. And this is going to take a while, so be patient. All right, now Browsersync is installed and it's ready to use. Now what does Browsersync do? Browsersync actually acts kind of like a web server. So when I start up Browsersync, whenever I make a change to a file, Browsersync will then notice that change and send that content to my browser. So coming back over to my editor, what I'm going to create in my project is a new file, and I'm going to call that file index.html. JavaScript in your browser works in conjunction with HTML. We actually are going to be using JavaScript in order to add content and in order to add behavior to web pages, and web pages are written using HTML. So I'm going to type in a very simple web page, and through the magic of being able to edit the video, here is my simple HTML file. And basically what it's saying is that the name of the file is index.html. We have the HTML tag, so everything between here and here is written in the hypertext markup language. The head section of your HTML document provides data that describes the document. And then here's the important part. Here's the body of the document. And I've just simply said hello world in here. So now I have my simple hello world HTML file. And what I want to do is I want to use Browsersync, which I previously installed over in my Node command window. I want to use Browsersync to serve this page so that it shows up in my browser. So what I do is I come back over to my command prompt and I'm going to type in Browsersync. That's the name of the package that I installed. And I have to give it some configuration settings. So first I want to say start -s -f. Tell it which file to look at. I want it to look at index.html. And I want it to output index.html to my browser. So that command is --no-ui. Now hit return. Browsersync now opened my web page. You saw that little message that said connected to Browsersync. and we can see that Browsersync is serving up my index.html file. Now, the great thing about Browsersync is that every time I make a change and save it to index.html, it's going to update my browser. So let me come back over here to Visual Studio Code, and I'm saying, hello world, how are you today? And then once I save that, I'm going to type Control S. You'll see that Browsersync synchronized what I had over here on the right in my file index.html, and it put it here in the browser. Hello world, how are you today? And if I go back over to my command prompt window, which is behind here, you can see that it's actually noticing that index.html changed. This is pretty good, but you know, typing this command, Browsersync start, this is a lot of work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this command and I'm going to copy it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here to that file that was created when I did npm init, this package.json. If I look in package.json, there's a section here that's called scripts. And what I can do is I can write my own scripts in order to take things like starting Browsersync and make them much easier. So what I'm going to do is I've already got this script here for the test. At the end of this line for the test script, I'm going to type comma and then a new line. And then I'm going to create a new script, which I'm going to call start. I'm going to paste in, using Control V, that text that I typed on my command line. And what this means is that now I can come back over to my command window and I can type in npm start. And it's running that command that I put in my script. So this is great. Now, all I have to do when I'm in my directory is just type in npm start, and it's going to execute this script right here. Okay, so far so good, but I have not actually done anything with JavaScript yet. So now let's do something with JavaScript. So I really should put most of my files under a directory that I'm going to call source. So I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it src. Now in that folder, I'm going to create a new file which I'm going to name app.js. And I'm going to put my JavaScript into this file, app.js. So in my JavaScript file, I want to write a very simple JavaScript statement that's going to update the HTML that's being displayed in the browser. So what I want to do is I want to update the document. I just type in document, and it's this lowercase. I want to update the document. So if I type dot, what I want to update within the document is everything that's within that body tag. So it's document.body, and inside that body, what I want to do, I want to update the HTML that's within the body. So I just say inner HTML. All right, so I'm going to update the document's body and set the inner HTML to be a string. And I'm going to just say, hello from JavaScript, and then save that. So now that I have my JavaScript statement in app.js, I want to modify my index.html so that it will actually execute that JavaScript that I've just written. And I do that by replacing this line in the body with the script element. So it's script, and then within the script element, you can say src is equal to, and then you type in the location of the file where the JavaScript is. And in my case, it's in src/app.js. And then I have to close off this tag. And in the case of the script tag, I have to have a closing tag /script. And then when I save that, you saw over here in my browser window, now I'm getting the code that's in app.js executed. Right, we're almost there, but not quite, because what I really want is so that if I change my JavaScript file, the browser will update. So right now, if I'd say hello from JavaScript, how are you today? If I save that, I'm typing Control S, you'll notice it doesn't update the browser. Well, why is that? Well, it's because back here in my package.json file, when I defined my start command for npm, I said start and I gave it a specific file. Well, what I want it to do is I want it to not only be looking at this specific file, but if I make any changes at all to any file that's in that src directory, in that source directory, I want it to notice that change and update the browser on those changes also. So I'm going to save this, and then I have to come back over to my Node command prompt window, and I'm going to type Control-C because I have to quit my Browsersync and restart it in order for this to work correctly. So now, making sure that I have saved my changes to my package.json file, I can now type in npm start. We see that it starts up again. Now let's test it. What I wanted to do was make sure that if I make a change just in the JavaScript file, that Browsersync will notice that and will update my browser with that change. So in my app.js, I can say, how about, hello there, how are you today? Once I save this, I'm typing Control-S. You see it did update the browser as I wanted it to do. So now I have my environment set up where I can create my JavaScript, and every time that I make a change, it's going to be reflected over here in the browser. So now I can really start experimenting with JavaScript.